Welcome back to an episode of Let's Build Twitter. We are currently on episode 79, and today we work on storing a logged in user's information into the application state. We do this by creating a new user interface and using it inside of a newly created redux slice that we call UserSlice. Inside the slice, we go ahead and create a flag called fromRegister, which is going to be able to allow us to know when a login occurs inside the register modal. Once we have set up the flag and got everything working, we set up the login logic inside of the slice and then call it from inside a register modal 6, which is where the user sets their password, then navigates that user to the feed page. Before wrapping up, we wanted to ensure proper state cleanup was done inside the register slice, so we set up the register modal to remove all information from the register slice whenever we close out of it. As always, I'm Koder, and let's hop straight into the development. The next steps moving forward are going to be set up some user information and actually store it in the application. We'll also need to eventually store the user's token inside of local storage. Unfortunately, I might have to store it inside of a slice for a little bit at least. That way I can transfer it over to local storage, figure out how to deal with that in a little bit. I want to go ahead and start working on some user slice stuff and start getting it so that whenever we do go all the way through the registration step, we can at least log in, and then we're going to start working on some registration flow after that. So the first thing we need to do is go into our utils and open up our global interfaces. I need to make a new user interface. I think I can just add it at the bottom. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to say export interface user. And this is probably going to get changed eventually, but this is what it's going to be for the time being. So we're going to have a user ID, which is a number. We're going to have a first name, which is a string. We'll have a last name, which is also a string. We're going to have an email, which is a string. We're going to have a phone number, which is a string. We're going to have a date of birth, which for the time being is just going to be a string. We'll need to fix this later. Actually, this should be DOB. For the time being, it's not going to work out properly, but we'll fix it in a later episode. We need a string bio. We need a nickname, which is a string. And we need a profile picture, which is a name. Profile picture. It doesn't seem intuitive to be a string, but it's because of the way we have our backend set up. And then banner picture is a string. Let's also remember to go ahead and put username in here. I think that just is just a typo and I forgot it. So username for string. And now that we have this, we need to go ahead and create a new slice inside of our Redux folder. So inside of slices, I'm going to make a new file. I'm going to call this UserSlice.ts. And now we need to go ahead and import a few things. So we're going to need this eventually. So I'm going to go ahead and say create async thunk. We're going to need create slice. And we're going to need payload action. So some of these we're not going to use right away, but we'll need them eventually. We're going to go ahead and set up an interface for our user slice state. The user slice state, and this is going to have a logged in. We'll probably add some stuff to this later, but this is a user or undefined. Whenever the user is not logged in, it obviously shouldn't be filled out. We're going to have a fromRegister flag. So this is going to be able to tell, hey, this login came from the register modal, or this login did not come from the register modal. So that'll be useful. And then finally, error is a Boolean. So this is like, hey, we logged in or we didn't log in. Next, we need to set up the initial state. So initial state is a user slice state. In this one, logged in. Obviously, if the user's not logged in yet, it'll be undefined. We need to say equal to here. So if we're not logged in, we're undefined. From register, and I've messed it up. From register should start out as false, and this will only be set if we are coming from the register, and error will also be false, like so. Finally, we can go ahead and start creating our user slice. So export const user slice is equal to create slice, and inside of here we'll have an object. So the name will be user, the initial state, and then our reducers will just be empty for the time being. And then we want to go ahead and export const an object user slice. If I could type .actions. So we'll export some actions eventually. We also want to export default our user slice .reducer. So this is just setup work. We also need to go ahead and import this into our Redux store. So go to our store.ts. Let's go ahead and import our user reducer from our /redux /slices /UserSlice. And then we need to go ahead and set this up. So user reducer. So part of me feels like we should probably set up a login reducer or just straight up auth reducer or something and combine these. It is what it is. So this is all set up and ready to go. So now for the confusing part. So whenever we are inside of our register form 6, we're gonna have to do several things. So the first thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and set state.login. And state.login is basically gonna say, hey, we're ready to move on to the login step, or we're ready to go on and actually log the person in, store the user in the state, do the local storage stuff. After this, the feed page needs to know whether or not to show the first time login information, which is going to be the modal to set up your picture, the modal to set up your banner picture and bio and things like that. So then we're going to go ahead, and after we have state.login equal to true, we need to go ahead and set up the user.state.fromRegister. And then after we set that inside the register form 6, we need to go ahead and actually dispatch the login and move on from there. So with that being said, we do need to go back into the UserSlice and set up a reducer to actually set the fromRegister state inside of our UserSlice. Inside of our reducers, we are just going to say set fromRegister. Simple enough. We have our state and we have our action : payload action, which is a Boolean. We don't really need to pass this because it's always going to be set to true, but it is what it is. And our state is going to equal to ... state, and then comma fromRegister is going to be true. And then we need to go ahead and return the state from this reducer, return the new state, return state. And now we also need to remember to go ahead and export this. So set fromRegister and save. And now we can actually set up the first part of this inside of the register slice 6 or register form 6. We need to go ahead and import that. So this is going to come from, so import, and this is going to be, if I could type, set, and this is fromRegister. Okay, and we already have used dispatch. So what we're going to want to do is if state.login, and we're also going to modify this and just return state like so, and we're going to say if state.register.login, and instead of navigating, we need to change this to state.login or state.register.login. Instead of navigating, we want to send the dispatch to set user.fromRegister. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and say dispatch, and we're going to say set fromRegister to true. And it doesn't really do anything here. So if we really want to, we could go ahead and say action.payload, and it'll set it as well, but we're not really using it. So now this is going to set this to true. And then whenever we hit this, we're going to say if state, if I could type, .user.fromRegister is set to true, we are ready to dispatch the login. And we also want to return, that way we don't fall through. So now we need to flip-flop back to the UserSlice and actually set up the login. So let's go into UserSlice.ts, and we need to make a new interface called login args or login body, whatever we want. Interface login body, and we need a username, which is a string, and we need a password, which is a string, which will come from the register. And then we also need to go ahead and make a async thunk export const, and this is going to be called login user is equal to create async thunk, and this is going to take in some properties. So user/login, you can name this whatever you like, and then our async body, we're going to say a body is a login body, so it's going to have the username and password. Then we have our thunk API, and go ahead and make our callback. Now in here, we're going to have our try catch for our request. So try and catch. And if we catch an error, we're going to say thunk API and then dot reject with value and E. That's just kind of the standard here. And then here, we're going to say const request is equal to await Axios. And we need to import Axios, so just hit enter. Post, and we're going to post to http:// and then for the time being it'll be localhost 8000 /auth/login, and we need to pass the body. So this is our asynchronous call, and we need to set up our extra reducers inside of our UserSlice to handle this. So underneath our reducers, we'll go ahead and say extra reducers, and this is going to take in builder like we did previously and a callback function. And we're only going to worry about fulfilled and rejected. I don't really care about pending. Maybe later on I do want like a loading state or something, but I'm not that worried of it. So we are going to say builder.addCase. And in here, we're going to have login user.fulfilled. Whoops. .fulfilled. And we're going to have our state and our action. And now in here, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead. Oh, I forgot the equal sign. That'll do it. There we go. All right, cool. So now we just need to set state equal to ... state. And this is going to be a little bit gross, but we want logged in equal to. And we're going to get the information from the request. So the user ID is going to be action.payload.user ID. Our first name is going to be action.payload.user.firstname. Our last name is going to be action.payload.user.lastname. Our email is going to be action.payload.user.email. Our phone is going to be action.payload.user.phone. Our date of birth. This one we're going to have to actually fix, but it's fine. Action.payload.user. And I think this one is under date of birth. Next, we have username. So username is going to be action.payload.user.username. We have a couple more. Bio is action.payload.user.bio. Then we have the profile picture. This is action.payload.user.profile picture. And finally, we have banner picture. This is action.payload and .user.banner picture. And this is being annoying. It's not letting me say logged in is missing type. Let's see. Oh, and we missed nickname somehow under bio. Nickname action.payload.user.nickname. And it's going to be annoying and say that the payload does not have type user. It's because I forgot to return rec.data. And that should fix it. There we go. Just need to return that. And then we also, I think that's actually good now. We just need to actually insert this async thunk call into our register form 6. So now here we want to go ahead and dispatch the login. So we can go ahead and say dispatch. And we need to go ahead and import our login user. Or actually we want it from here though. We want our login user. And what we can do is we can go ahead and say dispatch login user. And this is going to take in an object with a username equal to state.register.username. And the password is going to be state.register.password. Right? And now we can go ahead and do this. it'll dispatch that. It doesn't matter if it's perfectly async, it's going to return. It'll finish anyway. We also want to go ahead and add state.user.user now. Actually, it's logged in. And we also want to watch for state.user.fromRegister. Those are going to be the three things that we're watching for. So now, after this last one, after we have if state.fromRegister, we want to go ahead and see if there's a user logged in. So we can say if state.user.logged in. If this exists, if this user exists, we want to go ahead and say navigate home. /home. And now this should actually be able to do this for us. So let's go ahead and give this a test spin. Well, actually, before we give it a test spin, I do want to go ahead and do one more thing. So inside of the register state, I want to go ahead and create a cleanup function to clean everything up. Let's go ahead and go into UserSlice, and I'm going to go into the reducers, and just at the bottom, I'm going to create a clean up state or clean states, and we'll need this as well for other things. And we're going to have the states there, and all this is going to do is we're going to say return, and then we're going to say initial state. So we're going to literally just change the state. If we want to, we could actually, I want to be safe. We're going to say state is equal to initial state, and then we return state. So now what I think that I want to do is I had an original plan, and this was to call this dispatch inside of the register form 6, but we already have a bunch of stuff in there. So I think we can actually do is go into our register modal and go into register modal.tsx. And what we could do is we can go ahead and use a use effect in here. So use effect in the register modal, and whenever we close out of the register modal, that means we're done and we need to clean up the register state. And this will work for whenever we close out of the last button and it closes out as well. So I'm going to go ahead and use effect, and inside here we're just going to have an empty array like so. But inside, whenever we return, we're going to return, and we're going to return a clean up state, so dispatch. And we're going to need to go ahead, and we have dispatch, just kidding. And then we're going to call a clean. And I probably should have called this, I'm going to call this clean register state. We also need to add it to our list at the bottom. So let's scroll down, and let's add clean register state and save. And we need to import clean register state. Clean register state, and we want to go ahead and dispatch this clean register state like so. Now I hope this works. It might not work. Basically what this should do is whenever we leave the use effect, or whenever we leave this use effect with the return in it, should act as a component did unmount, and then it should also go ahead and call this clean register state. So let's go ahead and give this a try. I'm not sure if it's gonna work fully, but I actually installed Redux DevTools. That way we can see what the state and everything looks like. Let's go ahead and just make this smaller, or actually we can make this guy smaller. So I'm going to inspect, and I'll just make this guy a little bit smaller and open this guy up. We should be able to see everything. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into raw is probably fine. Everything else is a little bit big. I guess it doesn't matter. I just want to show the state after everything's said and done. I'm going to set this to the side for now, and then we'll open it up in a second so I can kind of walk you through the way the state works. We're going to go ahead and put in a test in user. And I don't remember if I restarted the server, so let me go ahead and restart the server real quick. That way I know for a fact that our user's deleted. Our user's deleted. I'm going to paste in our email, put in a random day, month, and year. Go ahead and just go through the sign up flow. Sign up, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And sure, update number. Wait for our code to come by. Got our code, copy and paste this. Next, put in the password. And if all goes well, we should still see the landing page, and we should be able to go look through the states. So next, okay, we got the welcome page, and let's go ahead and take a look at the state. The state, we got login/fulfilled, and it looks like we did call the register clean state early, so that might be a problem. Although we called login fulfilled twice, which is interesting. But we did clean the register state. We set from register as we expected. And then after we set from register, we went to pending. And then after pending, we went to fulfilled. And then for some reason, we called pending and login fulfilled again, but it did call it after this. So I'm gonna need to look into why it did that. I'm not sure. Maybe we should have returned or something, but everything else is working, and now we're ready to start working on the other login flow and all of that good stuff. I'll also debug this issue as we get going here, and if I find a fix for it, I'll go ahead and update you guys in a different episode. Unfortunately, that's going to be it for today. If you guys enjoyed, please stick around for the next episode by hitting that subscribe button. You'll know exactly when it comes out, especially with that bell icon. If you did enjoy the content today, please sure to leave a thumbs up. If you did enjoy it, leave a thumbs down. Either way, it helps out with the algorithm all the same. And finally, if you have any suggestions or feedback for me, make sure you leave a comment down below. With that being said, I appreciate you all for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode. Peace out, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.